In the last episode, I gave you an exercise to build a simple profile page to allow a user to update the username and the two-factor flag. I implemented the basic profile page behind the scenes, and I'm going to quickly go over the changes within the UI. That being said though, I recommend you to do the branch comparison to see the difference in code. You can compare the P33 start branch with the P32 end to compare to your solution or apply it to your code if you're following along. Alright, so once you're logged into the Expennies app, if you click on the username right here, you should see a new link to the profile. And if we click on that, we see a very basic profile page. We have the name and the enable 2FA via email checkbox to enable or disable the 2FA via email. The email field is disabled, it's just there for informational purposes. We're not allowing the user to change the email, because if we allowed the user to update the email, and because we use email as the username, then we would have to do some email confirmation or verification and some other checks to ensure that no two users exist with the same email. So to keep it simple, we're not going to allow the user to update their email. Now if I change the name here and toggle the 2FA, click save, the profile has been updated. Then if I refresh, you can see that the name has been updated here and the checkbox remains checked. We can change it back, save changes, refresh, and sure enough, changes were saved. You probably noticed this update password button here, which when clicked prompts the user with the modal to enter the current password and the new password. It does not work currently, and this will be your next exercise to implement, but before you can work on that exercise, let's first implement the forgot password feature. So let's close that out, let's log out, and now if you click on the forgot password link, it renders this basic forgot password page where you have to enter the email address to continue the password reset process. I added this UI behind the scenes as well, but have not implemented the actual reset password logic, so we're going to actually build that up right now. So whenever a user enters the email address here and presses continue, we should prepare and send an email with instructions to reset the password. So let's open the code editor. Within the web.php, we have these two routes right here. One is the get route for the forgot password, and the other one is the post route for the forgot password. The get route is what renders that forgot password page, and the post route actually handles the forgot password request whenever that continue button is clicked. If we inspect this method, we see that it hasn't been implemented yet, which we need to fill it in. I did provide the proper request validator class for this request, which contains the single required field, which is the email field. So in here, basically, we need to send the email with the reset password instructions. First thing that we need to do is that we need to find the user with the given email on the request. So we can do something like user equals this user provider service, which we're going to inject in the constructor in just a moment. We'll call getByCredentials method because we have that method available on that service, if you remember, and we'll pass the data as an argument because data contains the email, and that's all that's needed to get the user by credentials. Now let's inject that class private read-only user provider service interface. Then we need to check if the user is found or not. Now here is the important part. If user is not found by the email, we should not respond with error message letting them know that we could not find any user with the given email. That would open us up to the user enumeration vulnerability where attacker could basically figure out which email is valid and which one is not. Basically, they could use the forgot password feature to determine if the user they're trying to hack into exists within the system. So that is why it's important to not reveal that information that the user doesn't exist with this email. Instead, try to show a generic message, something like we've sent the password reset instructions to the provided email. So what we can do here is that if the user is found, then we'll simply send the email here, and otherwise if the user is not found, then we'll just return the empty response. This way, regardless if the email was sent or not, we're going to show the same generic message to the user that we've sent the password reset instructions to the provided email. Now to actually send the email, what I'm going to do is that I'm going to duplicate the existing two-factor auth email. So let's go to the mail folder. We'll duplicate this and call it forgot password email. Now, similar to the 2FA codes, we need some sort of token with expiration time. This way we can generate and sign a reset URL and include the token within it. I prefer a separate password resets table for better auditing and flexibility. Basically the same reason I decided to have the 2FA code stored within its own separate table. So in here, instead of accepting user login code or the user entity, we can accept something like password reset entity, and we can get the email from the password reset. So instead of getting the user relationship and then getting the email from the user, we're simply going to get the email from the password reset entity, because I don't want to associate the password resets with any specific users. We're just going to store the email within the password reset entity. Next, we need to generate a signed URL. We can actually grab the snippet of code from the sign up email where we already generate the signed URL. So let's open the sign up email. We can copy this activation link and paste it here. We'll rename this to reset link. We'll need to create a route with the name, so we'll call that route something like password reset, and then we also need to pass the token as the route parameter. So we can get rid of the ID since we don't need it, and instead of hash we'll have token. And we can get the token from the password reset entity. So we can do get token. We also need the expiration date. So we can actually do password reset get expiration. And we should adjust our subject and the HTML template. So the subject can be something like your Expennies password reset instructions. The HTML template will be password reset, and I've created this behind the scenes. If we open it, we see that it's very generic email template. We are letting the user know that they've requested to reset the password, and to proceed they need to click this reset link URL. Now we can take this and pass that as a placeholder here. So our context will just be reset link, and this is going to be this link right here. Now to make this work, we need to implement the password reset entity. Before we do that, let's inject the signed URL service here. So we'll do private read-only signed URL, and I have double $sign here. Let's get rid of one, and I think this looks good. We should be good to move on with the password reset entity. So let's actually duplicate the user login code and call it password reset. And we're just going to change things around here. So the table name will be password resets. We have the ID. Instead of code, this will be token. We can get rid of the length 6. We'll keep the is active. We need expiration. We don't need the user, and instead we need an email. So we'll duplicate that and call this email. And it would also be good to store some timestamps when this password reset was created or updated or something like that. So we already have the trait for that we use in other entities, so we could use it here as well. So we can do use has timestamps. And for this to work, we need to add the has lifecycle callbacks attribute. So we'll do has lifecycle callbacks. And I think we're good to adjust the getters and setters. So this will be get email, email. This will be set email, change it to email, email, and set email. We'll keep the is active. Expiration stays the same. Instead of get user, we'll have get token, and this will return string. Change this to token, and this will be set token, string, token, token, and token. And I think that's about it. So now that we have the entity, let's create the service class that we can use to generate or create the new password reset record. So we can go to the services, and we can actually again duplicate the user login code service. We'll call it password reset service. Let's adjust this code here. We need the entity manager. For the generate, we'll have password reset. We're going to accept the email only. Let's change that to password reset. And we're going to set the expiration to 30 minutes. And we're going to set the email to email. And we're going to set the token. Now, to generate the token, I'm going to use random bytes. So we'll do random bytes 32. And we'll need to apply bin2hex to this. We can get rid of this, replace user login code with the password reset, and return it. Let's adjust this as well. And let's go back to the controller so that we can actually send that email out. So in here, what we're going to do is that we're going to inject the password reset service. So we'll do password reset service, and we also need the email. So private read only, forgot password email. And in here, we'll first generate the password reset record. So we'll use password reset service, generate, pass the email, and then we'll just send it out using the forgot password email class. So we'll do send and pass the password reset. Now we do need to import that class in here. So let's import password reset. And finally, we need to add this route to be able to generate the signed URL. So let's open the web.php. Let's duplicate the get route to the forgot password. This will be called reset password. And we're going to accept token as part of the route, and we can call a method that will render the reset password form. So we can actually change this to show reset password form, and let's add the name to this route. So this is going to be password reset, and we also need to add the middleware here to validate the signature. So we'll do add validate signature middleware. And let's create this show reset password form method. So let's go to this controller. We'll do public function show reset password form. We need request. We need response. This will return response. And in here, we basically need to find the password reset record using the token that's passed to the route. So we actually need the arguments here. So this will be array args. And we have the token on the arguments, so we'll do args token, and now we need to find the password reset record using this token. So we can maybe add a method on the password reset service to find the record by token. So we can do something like password reset equals this password reset service, find by token, and pass the token as an argument. We can actually just pass this directly instead of creating a variable. And then in here, we can check if the password reset is not found, then we'll simply redirect the user to the home page, which will redirect the user to the login page if they're not logged in. So we can do return response with header, location, home page with status 302. Otherwise, if the password reset is found by the token, then we'll render the view that will show the form to the user to update the password. So we can do this twig render response, and the twig template for that is auth reset passwords twig, and I've created this behind the scenes as well. So if we open that up here, I think it's called reset password. Yeah, not reset passwords. And it's just a basic template with a form that contains two input fields. One is the new password and the other one is to confirm that password. All right, so let's now implement this find by token method. We're going to use the query builder. So we'll do this entity manager service, get repository, password reset, create query builder, and alias it to PR. Then we'll do select PR where PR token is equal to token, and where PR is active is equal to active, and where PR expiration is greater than now. And we'll set the parameters. So let's pass an array. The token is token, active is going to be true, and now is going to be a new datetime object. Now let's call the getQuery method and then get one or null result to get the actual result. If it's not found, it's just going to return null. So let's return this here. We're going to adjust this to string, and the return type will be nullable password reset. And this is highlighting here for some reason. Oh, because I'm doing set parameter, not set parameters. All right, notice that I'm doing all the comparison within the query builder here, while for the 2FA codes, we had this verify method and we were not doing everything within the query. We were getting the record and then we were checking if it exists, if not return false, and then we were checking the expiration this way. Now we could have also done the same thing here and done the check for the expiration within the query as well. I just wanted to show you the both options. It really depends on how you structure your application and the needs of your application. You might want to have a special handling for the expiration part. So I just wanted to show you that you have multiple options when building these methods. So in our case, we can actually get rid of this verify method because we don't need it. And we do need the deactivate all active codes, but instead it's going to be deactivate all password resets. We're going to pass the email. So this will be password reset. Let's change that to PR. We'll set the isActive to 0. So let's replace C with PR. And this will be where the email is equal to email and where PR isActive is equal to 1. Let's change that to email as well. And I think that's good enough. Now let's call this deactivate all password resets from within the controller before generating a new code. So within here, before we generate a new code, we can call it right here. So we'll do this password reset service deactivate all by this email. And I think we're good to test this part out. We do still need to build the actual password update part, but we can do that in just a little bit. First, let's test this to make sure that email is sent properly and the password reset record is created. Let's run the diff command to generate the migration to create the password resets table. Let's migrate the database. Let's open the browser. Let's enter our email, click continue. Let's click OK. We are redirected to the login page. Let's check the email. We do have the email in here and we do have that link. Let's click on that link and we're getting an error, unable to find template. Oh yeah, I forgot to update this from plural to singular. So let's go back to code. We're going to change this to reset password. Let's go back, refresh, and sure enough, we see the form to enter the new password and confirm. Alright, so now the final piece of the puzzle is to implement this post route whenever that update button is clicked. So let's go back to the code, open the web.php routes file. In here, we need to basically duplicate this route and we'll have this as a post route. We don't need the name and we don't need this middleware. And this is going to call reset password method and we're going to implement that within the controller. So let's add that in here. Public function reset password request response, and we do have the token in the arguments and this will return response as well. So let's do return response and we actually don't need the request in here, so let's get rid of that. And in here we can do the same thing we're doing here. So let's find the password reset record the same way using the token. So let's actually scroll up, let's copy this from here and let's paste it here and we'll call this reset password request validator. And we do need to implement that. So let's open the request validators here. We're going to duplicate the register user request validator because that contains that password and confirm password rule. So let's rename this to reset password request validator. Let's adjust it. We're not gonna need the entity manager here. So let's get rid of that. We won't need this rule. We don't need the name and email rules here. We just need password and confirm password. So let's get rid of that. And I think this is good enough. Then let's close that out. In here, what we're gonna do is that if the password reset is not found, instead of redirecting, we'll throw maybe a validation error. So we'll do throw new validation exception, confirm password, and that's the name of the field. Then to reset the password, we actually need the user entity, and we can get the user by using the email from the password reset record. Let's actually import this first. Then in here, we'll do user equals this user provider service, get by credentials, and pass the email this way. So we'll have password reset, get email. If the user is not found, we can throw another validation exception. And then finally in here, we can call some kind of reset password method to actually update the user password. We can add that within the password reset service class. So we can do this password reset service, update password, pass the user entity and the new password. So there will be data password. So let's create that method on the password reset service. And in here, we just need to do user set password, and we need to hash this password again. Now, if we open the user provider service class, we see that we have the create user method, and we're setting the password in here and are hashing it this way. Why don't we extract this into its own class? Maybe we can have something like this hash service hash password and pass the raw password this way, and have this method be responsible to hash the password. So let's add a new service. We'll scroll up here. Let's inject private read-only hash service class. So let's create this class. We're going to add that method in. So let's create that method, and this will return string, and we'll simply do return password hash and replace that with password. Now we can inject the same hash service within the password reset service. So we'll do private read-only hash service, scroll down and do this hash service hash password, and we'll do this entity manager service sync user. Now, as part of this method, we should also probably deactivate all the previous password reset records. So we could either call the deactivate method within this method or outside within the controller. Now, I'm going to show you an example where you can call it within this example and actually wrap the entire thing within the database transaction, which we should be doing in other places as well. I just haven't been doing it to keep things simple, but I want to show that to you as an example so that you know how you can do it. So in here, what we can do is that we can call the deactivate all password resets method and pass the user email this way, and then we can wrap this whole thing within the database transaction. So we can do something like this entity manager service wrap in transaction, and this will be a closure. So let's wrap it this way. Let's provide the user and password. And I think that's it. Let's finally test this out to make sure that it works. So let's go back to the page. Let's enter a new password. Click update, and we're getting not found error. That means it's 404. Let's open the DevTools, click update again, and we're getting 404. Oh, because the token is not being passed to the route. Now let's go back to the code. Let's open the reset password template. The token needs to be passed to this view from the controller. So maybe we're not passing it in the controller. So let's go to controller. Yeah, we're not passing the token in here. So what we'll do is that we'll pass the token this way. Args token. Let's go back to the browser. Click update. Password has been updated successfully. I'm going to try to log in with my old password. That no longer works. Let's try to log in with the new password, and that works as expected. Alright, so now you should be able to implement this update password feature. All you really need to do in here is that you need to compare the current password to the user's hashed password. If they match, then that passes the validation. If it doesn't match, then don't allow the user to reset, and then hash the new password and set it on the user entity. Now, as you can imagine, you could add some password validation to ensure that the user is not reusing the same password. You can implement that as an exercise as well. You could also add some validation around the password rules. Maybe you require minimum characters of 8, and maybe you require special characters and so on. So you could build that in within the request validator class. Alright, so this is it for this video. Thank you so much for watching. Smash the like button if you enjoyed it, and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already done so. Until next time, happy coding.